So here we have another LED sign video for you. This was a discarded entertainment center I found at my neighbor's house, and this all made of really nice oak plywood. So that's what we're going to be using for our backer on this one. We are going to be using a different type of LED neon for this project as well. So we learned a lot from our first project. This one, I believe, will be way easier, and ultimately will probably wind up with a better result as well. So with that said, I need to get this cut down to size because our design ends right here. So it's going to be a pretty good size sign. I think it's like 26 by 15 overall. So I'll get this piece of board cut. We'll get it into the CNC machine to make all of our grooves to hold all of our silicone strips for our LED lights. And just something I want to share with you real quick. So I am setting my zero here for my stock, and I just hold my boards down with staples. This is 3/4 inch material, so I'm using 1-inch staples. It holds it down plenty good. We could use 1.25 inches too. But one of the things I did just want to point out real quick is a little tip, if you will. I didn't have it available on this particular blank as far as a lot of extra spacing. So my zero has to be pretty close. But usually what I like to do is I like to take my blank and add 2 to 3 inches to the width and height. And this way, when I'm zeroing my bit, I don't have to be super precise because I know I have a little bit of play in my stock. In this case, I am pretty specific because I don't quite have that extra space in the blank that I'm using. So that's just a little tip for you. If you add just a little bit of margin, then we don't have to be so precise. We can just kind of eyeball it and be close enough. So now we'll go ahead and get this to cut. So there we go. Our sign is all cut out and prepped. So this is going, this is a sign that I'm making for my daughter. She's a Dr. Pepper lover. So she decided that's what she wanted for her sign. So we'll go ahead and get it popped off here, and we'll get it stained up, and then we're ready for LEDs. So now we have our board all prepped, stained. We've got all of our holes drilled, 1 hole for every segment that we're doing. Now, we are using a 2-part Neon Flex tube, and normally, the advantage of using that 2-part, normally we would have a little jumper wire on the front of our backer. It would be more or less invisible when it was lit, but we're going to hide all the wiring out back. So that's why I drilled the hole through the backer, and we're going to run all of our wiring through the back of the sign. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and lay down all of our LED strips in our channels here. But we have multiple colors. We have red, all the text is white, and the outside edges are a gold, and each color has its own LED strip. So the gold will actually be gold lights, red will be red lights, and the white, of course, will be white lights. So we'll go ahead and get those laid out. All right, so next step, let me talk to you about what we're doing here. So we've got all of our LEDs more or less in place, but this is one thing you won't find in other videos. The real nit and gritty, dirty stuff here. So let's look at this segment here. So you can see here, we have to cut on our solder points. We do have to do that. We've got 3 segments there, 3 LEDs. And then here, you can see when we go around, when we make these tight bends, this straight tape doesn't like to bend very well. So you kind of have to like wrinkle it over on itself, so to speak. And you want to make sure that the LEDs are facing up. And as we come along here, and notice where we ended. So this is kind of folded over on itself. This is folded over on itself. So we have an LED that ends right there. And we're cutting it, if you look here, from the solder pads, we have 1, 2, 3 LEDs. So all of those will light up, and that's what we want. Now, if we look at our E, you can see it looks pretty rough. And that's because I actually had my daughter do this, because she's kind of learning the process. Wrinkled up all the LEDs, and then I kind of had to redo it a little bit. I'm not overly concerned about the adhesive, because we can, when we put our silicone on top, that will hold those in place. So it's not the end of the world. But here you can really see, we started up here, we came around this bend, and in order to end at 3 LEDs, so if I pull this back, you can see there's our solder pads. We got 1 LED underneath, 2, 3. Otherwise, we would be way back here, and we wouldn't have an LED at the end. If we don't have an LED at the end, then our diffuser won't be lit up at the end. And we'll have diffuser there, but no light, okay? So it's not gonna look super pretty right now, but like I said, I'm not gonna stress it out. If I need to fix something, I'll fix something along the way. But what I will do is I will go through and test each one of these segments to make sure all the LEDs are functional before I start soldering on our wiring, okay? So you can see here, I just kind of placed my gold ones in place just to see kind of what it would look like. So I will go through and double check all of these LEDs, and then I'll start cutting my silicone to fit in each of these spots. All right, I thought I would give you a little update here. Getting to this point has been an absolutely brutal process. So I am using 8mm neon flex because I thought I had ordered 6 and I ordered 8. And you can see this design, there's not really a lot of really sharp details, but I will tell you the R's here, that little loop of the P, those were absolutely brutal. Even the E, you know, that is kind of a sharp curve there. All of those things have been really difficult to manipulate that 8mm neon flex. So I definitely, going forward, I mean, I like the looks of it. It's a little bit thicker, but you could tell just by feeling the 6mm, it's a lot more flexible. Now, I will tell you this, in general terms, I really, really like the this two-part process. Now, it has been brutal learning curve up to this point because of all the videos that are out there. There's no one that really is talking you step by step by step through the process. So let me just tell you what I've learned up to this point. So first of all, the first thing I had to determine was how wide this channel should be. And I made it 8.5mm, which is basically what this material, when I put the calipers on it, that's basically what it's showing, is 8.5mm. So, and I feel like this goes in okay, but it does, my fingers are sore. It does take a little bit of manipulation to get it in the channel. I didn't explore doing an 8.7 or even bigger, because it's kind of a catch-22. Even I noticed some of these, especially around the sharp curves and things, it wants to come out of the channel. So if we had a wider channel, then it would come out even easier, right? The one thing that I did notice pretty right off is right here at the corners. I don't know if you could really see it, but they have this right angle tool, okay? And we can slice a little corner. So this had a pretty sharp bend, and so I noticed I was really fighting it. So I cut a little nibble out there. You can see it right there. I cut a little nibble. I cut a little nibble. and that helped me manipulate it better. So there's one at the R here, here, all those sharp points right here, because I was fighting this little curve too. So these tools are cheap. I will link to these tools. I will link to the silicone diffuser that I'm using and the LEDs that I'm using. I got all this off of AliExpress. So really pleased. I can tell the way I could tell that these are significantly brighter than what I did on my first run with the regular LED strips, and I can understand why. So when we lay these LEDs in, we're laying them flat, so the light is going straight up. Well, on the other Neon Flex, the strip is built in, but the strip is on end, so the light is coming out to the side, one way or the other. So this is significantly brighter. And one thing that did surprise me was the fact that the red here has red LEDs. And what surprised me is that I was thinking if we had a red diffuser with white lights, it would be a lot brighter than red lights with a red diffuser, and that's not true. This red is so much more red with the red lights over the white lights. So I learned that too. The other thing I didn't mention is I did mention the 8.5 millimeter wide, but the depth is 1/4 of an inch. Now, I don't know what the depth really is supposed to be, but I will tell you this. I'm using 20 gauge wire here, and going forward I would not use 20 gauge wire. The dimmer is the dimmer that I use, I believe, is 22 gauge wire, but others are using 24, 26, even 30 gauge wire. So I haven't done enough investigating to know, you know, how much wattage we can put through 30 gauge wire and things of that nature. But I can tell you this: if you have the smaller the wire, I feel like the easier it's going to be to solder and do all kinds of things. So that's kind of what I'm going through now, is I'm soldering all these pieces. So what I did is I went ahead and put all of my LEDs in, okay? And then I'm going to come back in and I am going to cut all my diffusers. Now this was a job. This was a job. I feel like the more I do it, the easier that will come to me. But that turned out to be a pretty significant job to do. But, you know, for my first attempt with this stuff, I think it looks pretty good. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the back of the board. And for example, this piece here is a little bit different, but this piece right here, okay? So I've got my diffuser in. What that does, having the diffuser in place, it helps me keep those neons in place. So I put the neon in there. Actually, I had my daughter do it, and then I had to kind of come through and clean it up for her. So all the stickiness of the neon strip is kind of gone. But so the diffuser will kind of pin and hold that neon in place. So what I'm doing is I'm coming on the back side here, finding out where the hole for my E is, for example. Well, I've already got that one wired apparently. So let's take my R. So my R is at the bottom here, it looks like, possibly. Yes, you see that there? So what I'm doing, I'm just pulling this back enough to access my contact points, and then just kind of putting it back into place. So I'm just going to go through and solder all those spots, all the individual segments, and then we're going to tie everything together on the back side there. So it's coming along. It's going to look really great, but hopefully it'll get quicker the more signs I do, because this one has been quite a brutal project. All right, so we've got it all working, but it is a cluster gaggle back here, and I've considered several different ways of, and this could be a lot neater because these wires don't need to be as long as they are. What I did for simplicity is I just took all the positives that would reach to one another and made a bundle, made a bundle, made a bundle, made a bundle, and then I connected those bundles with a little jumper wire. Okay, that's just the way I did it, just for simplicity and to get it to function. So there is probably better ways to do this, or we could take, go from one segment of the letter to the next segment to the next segment and work our way across and have a little bit more forethought in how we put this together. But this does work. It just doesn't look very nice. One consideration that I saw that I actually thought was really good, we've got some almost like rubber cement that is a liquid electrical tape to cover all of these connections. And then we are going to, I did solder one together, so we are going to solder all these wires together so they don't come loose. But one person actually just took a piece of vinyl, so they kind of taped this all down with painter's tape. Once they got the wires they want, the way they wanted, and it just taped it all down, and then just came in with a sheet of vinyl and just trimmed that vinyl. And yeah, it was bumpy and wavy, but it was kind of clean looking, it was just black vinyl. So that might be one. I'm not going to worry about it for my purpose. We're going to hide these wires and you'll never see it when it's hung up. But so I've got this cluster here that is the negative, and you see this little jumper wire go into this cluster of negative, and then from there to this cluster of negative, and then from there to this cluster of negative. Okay, so, and then I have this jumper wire going from here to this one to that one, making a circle. So hopefully that makes some sense. So we'll get this all buttoned up and show you what it really looks like. Well, this project was absolutely grueling. Big, huge learning curve for me. But I could not be happier with the end result. I mean, this thing is absolutely cool. Very, very happy with the end results. Just really, really clean. So let me kind of put this in comparison to the other sign we did with the regular LED neon flex, where it's all one. This hands down trumps that. The look of this is way, way, way better. I mean, it just absolutely is. And one other thing to note, and I don't know if it seems brighter because this is 8mm, where the other stuff, the other sign we did was 6. The actual LED strip is the same. So it's the same strip. The only thing that changes is the diffuser. So there's that. But absolutely turned out really, really neat. So very pleased with the project. So I hope you learned a little something with the video. And yeah. So on to the next.